All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back from holiday weekend, a long holiday weekend, which I'm sure was welcome for probably everyone that's listening in on this call. I just got a Zoom notification. Bear with me. Okay. So yeah, I had an awesome weekend personally. The weather finally was amazing pretty much for the entire weekend. My wife and I, our dog just had eye surgery, so we kind of had to stay at the house, which is not what anyone wants to do since we've all been staying at the house, but we were at the house pretty much all weekend. So we kind of made like a beach vacation out of our backyard, which was fun. But it was a great weekend overall, no complaints. So it was a nice little refresh and a recharge. So hopefully you had the same thing. Today, I'm going to talk about notes. So we get questions all the time, every class without fail, about how to take notes, when to take notes, should you not take notes, all these different things that surround the idea of how to document what's being said and discussed during the interview. Good morning, Cindy. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes on, some tips and tricks that I think are helpful to apply in the interview setting, and hopefully you can have some takeaways that you can apply in your work life as well. So the first question is, what type of conversation is it that you're having? So is it going to be an investigative, so more of a fact-finding interview, or is it more of an accusatory, right? So like a WZ style type of interaction. So I asked that question because it's really two different strategies going into both. If it's a fact-finding interview, then that is implying we need information, right? We are having a conversation maybe to learn about the events of a particular incident that took place at a store. Maybe it's following up post-incident of something that may have happened, out in the community, whatever it may be, and you have to go interview a lot of people to figure out what happened. Regardless, our job then in those conversations is to ask the right questions. And we actually have another coffee break that Wayne did, I think a couple of weeks ago now, on what are the right questions to ask. So if you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend it. But asking the right questions is great, as long as you're able to document, actively listen, and then have really great follow-up questions to really get the information that you're looking for. And all of that is kind of contingent on effectively taking notes and how you're doing it. So a couple things. A lot of times what happens in a fact-finding interview, for most people, and myself included, was guilty of this, and I'm going to write this on the whiteboard so you can see it, is we tend to listen to what's being said. So let's say I ask the right question. So I start with an open-ended question. And I say, hey, Wayne, tell me all about what you did last Monday, right? Maybe Wayne was accused of eating way too many hot dogs on Memorial Day, so yesterday. So I'm going in now to find this out. What a weird investigative job this would be. But let's say that's the example. So I'm going in and I want to see, Wayne, what exactly did you do yesterday? Ultimately, I want to know how many hot dogs did he eat. But I'm not going to ask him that question because I want to see all the information that Wayne may volunteer to me by me asking the right question. So I'd say, hey, Wayne, tell me about your day yesterday, right? Wide open. And Wayne may start saying, well, my wife and I woke up and we got the kids together and then we went out to the park, right? So for me, as I'm writing, what a lot of people will do, they kind of default to doing is, and you can see here, this is my little sheet of paper, is Wayne's talking and I'm writing. I'm writing everything, or at least everything that I can keep up with that Wayne is saying. So this is called narrative note-taking, or longhand note-taking. This is bad, right? This is bad because as Wayne's talking, now I'm not interacting or actively listening to Wayne. My head is in the notepad and I'm just scribing as much as I possibly can. And I'm missing probably a lot of really good stuff. So if Wayne says, my wife and I got the kids together when we went to the park, I may have a question that comes up here, which would be maybe, how did he get to the park? What time did he go to the park, right? So I may have all these little questions that pop up as I'm writing that I'm not going to ask him in the moment because I don't want to stop him, right? I want him to give me his full narrative, but I'm going to have all these follow-up questions that I'm going to need more clarification on, right? You can see how this can get really confusing. The more Wayne talks, the more questions I develop that I need to circle back to. And then when I finally do ask the questions, there's no space for me to write the answer right next to it. So I'm going to probably on page 2, I'm going to start to answer some of the questions I had on page 1. So you can see how this gets really confusing really fast, and we miss a lot of follow-up questions so many times. When I was doing this, I would go back through my notes at the end of the conversation and be like, oh my God, I missed maybe 3, 4, 5 really important questions to follow up on just because I couldn't freaking find them in my notes because it's difficult. So a good way to do this that's a little bit easier to keep up with. There's a lot of different ways to do this, right? This is just one way that I have found effective. Is instead of longhand notes, I just make 3 quadrants, and it's going to be for open-ended, expansion, and close-ended. So this is kind of messy. Open, expansion, and close-ended. Then as Wayne's talking, if I want to know what time did he go to the park, I may just write time with a question mark next to it, right? If I want to know what park did he go to, I may write park with a question mark next to it. And this is all under the open-ended column. So then when Wayne's done, instead of me having to sift through all of my narrative notes, I can just go up to the first question I have here, which is time, and I would ask an expansion question. And that expansion question would not be, Wayne, what time did you go to the park? That's a close-ended. So I would say, Wayne, tell me more about when you went to the park, right? And then hopefully he'll include that in there. If he doesn't tell me the time then I will follow up with a close-ended question afterwards to make sure I get that point of clarity. But that's one really simple way to take shorthand notes. And again, those of you that have been in the field, I'm sure you've all developed your own system, but I highly recommend coming up with something because it makes it a lot easier to stay on top of the content that's being discussed and also have really great follow-up questions in the moment. One more thing I'd like to discuss quickly is if it is an accusatory interview, right, a WZ style interview, we don't take notes while we're talking, right? While we're going through the steps, we're not taking notes. What we are going to do, though, we will take notes when we get to development because we need to be able to engage that person the same way that we do in a fact-finding interview. We need to be able to engage them, ask the appropriate follow-up questions, notate amounts, frequency, all of these things, right? So I will tell them when we get into notes during development, I will say, hey, listen, I'm actually going to take some notes here, right? Call it out in the interview so they're not thinking, well, I thought you already knew this. I'm going to tell them I'm going to take notes here. The reason I'm taking notes here is I want to make sure I am accurately documenting everything that you're saying. So at the end of this conversation, I can take my notes and compare it to my investigation, and hopefully they'll match, right? So that at least you're calling out that elephant in the room of you taking notes and you're still able to document as you go through. Other ways to maybe get around some of the importance of the note taking is if it's audio or video recorded, that's helpful. I would still recommend some type of notes as you're going through the interview so you can maintain and keep up with what questions you need to ask in the course of that conversation. But if it's audio or video recorded, that makes it very, very easy, at least to go back and review everything that was said so you can catch everything for your report. If you have any questions about notes, you have any particular cases you'd like to bounce off of me, do not hesitate, reach out, shoot me an email. I'll put it in the chat box. Follow me on LinkedIn and send me a message as well. Anybody at WZ, that's what we're here for. We're happy to help. So have an amazing short week here post Memorial Day and stay safe and healthy. Take care.